Hey, we're back. All right. I hope 2020 ended pretty well for you and that 2021 is off to a great start. Just remember that the past does not define who you are today. The choices you make today define who you are today. All right. So we got a new year. When we left off, we were talking about movements of the 1800s. You remember all that stuff? I'm going to do a quick review real quick and then move into the new topics that we have going on. All right, so during the 1800s, we have the Industrial Revolution really becomes in a full swing. Remember, it started in England, mid-1700s. A guy in England invents this new plow. And this plow, we watched a video on it, does the work of 10 people. So if you have a farm, 9 of the people are no longer needed. One guy can do all of the work. So what are those other 9 people going to do? I don't know, something else. Build structures, invent things, make money. I don't know, take the products and do something different with them and develop the products more to where they're more valuable. And as the food supply increased from the plows and the inventions and stuff like that, England ended up with extra people. And these people will move to the cities and become cheap labor for factories. We're going to start cranking out products and all that good stuff. As the Industrial Revolution sends more and more people to the cities looking for work, the other countries of the world start sending more things to England, like in the South here in America, where cotton was the number one product. We're going to ship more and more cotton to England. They're going to start building factories to process this cotton. And both nations start to become rich. Pretty soon, 66% or 2/3 of all of America's exports was cotton going to England. Well, they were turning it into cloth and selling it to the rest of the world, all because a plow that was invented freed up the farmers to move to the cities to make that stuff. That makes sense? You remember talking about all this? Yeah. The other thing about the Industrial Revolution is we start coming up with faster, cheaper, better products like iron, better gunpowder, better technology, better wagon wheels, trains, ships, all this kind of stuff. And people began to move freely, and people began to get off the farms. People began to have extra money on the side because now with the new plow, I can do all my farming and still be done by noon, and then I can go make some extra cash for myself. And as people became more and more self-sufficient and more prosperous, we ended up seeing, number 2 here, a lot of independence movements break out. A lot of people like, say, Central and South America, well, they don't need the Spanish to take care of them anymore. They can now take care of themselves. The people of Italy, we don't need France to take care of us anymore. We'll take care of ourselves. The people of France, I don't need the king anymore. I'll take care of myself. And so all over the planet, every single industrialized nation, except for England, will have some kind of violent revolution. We had a civil war. Well, so did everybody else. And little nations are popping up all over the place. All of Central and South America will become free of the Spanish and the Portuguese because they can. They've got the resources and the money thanks to the Industrial Revolution. And as all of these people are reaching freedom, you know what they're thinking? They think, wow, we're number 1. We're better than them. We shouldn't be ruled by them. We're better than them. That's a natural thought process, right? Which in the middle of the 1800s, you combine the two. You've got a guy from England. His name is Charles Darwin. He's got some extra cash. He's traveling the world studying plants and animals because he wanted to. He gets off the coast of South America and discovers or goes to a series of islands called the Galapagos Islands. And he notices that the birds and animals and turtles and stuff are different from island to island. And he comes up with the theory of evolution, that things change and adapt over time, right? That the superior genes will rise to the top and the inferior genes will disappear. And he calls it the struggle. The struggle is real, yo. Yeah, I'm street. That's why I talk like that. But then it doesn't take long before Herbert Spencer and some of these other political theorists and activists in England take Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest and natural adaptation and all of that, and they apply it to society. And so number 3 here, we have social Darwinism. Social Darwinism breaks out about the middle of the 1800s. and really, really catches fire towards the end of the 1800s. Once these independence revolutions start fading out, social Darwinism is banging on all cylinders because everybody's like, well, we're number one. We beat you. We're number one. We're superior. Woo! It was just a natural progression of thought, right? And so under social Darwinism, in case you forget, we believe, well, not we believe, I can't put myself in this. They believed that some people rose to the top because they were superior. And then other people were on the bottom because they were not. And this justified the rich having money. This justified the leaders treating you poorly. And they saw that if you helped the lower classes, or at least they said, if you help the lower classes, what you're doing is actually making them weaker. You should offer no one any help, and you should let nature do what her natural, vicious thing is. Let's thin out the herd and get rid of the lesser genes and focus more heavily on the superior genes. That's a teaching of social Darwinism. It justified whatever you wanted to do. Now, after a little while, that spreads to a national thought. Hey, our nation is superior to your nation. Hey, our people, our genetics are superior to your genetics. And since the Industrial Revolution started in England, they had a lead on everybody else. And England was small, and they had everything they needed for iron right there close to each other. Kind of like Birmingham, Alabama. We got coal on one side, lime on the other, and all the trees in the world, and we've got iron ore in the ground, and you just scoop up the dirt and burn it, and bam, iron falls out. It's incredibly simple. And that's how England was. And they started looking at places, and they had an abundance of people, right? Remember that? And they started looking at places like Africa. Lots of resources, but they're very far spread out. They don't have everything in one place, so they didn't have good iron that they could readily produce. And they had been plundered for hundreds of years with the Atlantic slave trade, or actually with the global slave trade. Everybody was pulling Africans and sending them as far as China. You know, they were going both ways. There were lots of warring kingdoms. They were depopulated in a lot of areas. The economy was just collapsed. And so England started looking at Africa as, well, heck, look how bad their economies are. Look how little their technology is. We must be clearly superior to them. So let's help nature run its course and let's take over. And so that leads to European imperialism, right? Brought to you by the Industrial Revolution. The Europeans will have better stuff. Yeah. These thoughts lead to these thoughts. And if we're superior, we can lead to that. They moved to Asia. Asia had access to the Industrial Revolution, but the problem with Asia was that they didn't want to change. With all of the changes from the Industrial Revolution in Europe, you saw lots of cultures disappearing. You saw new religions popping up. You saw revolutions and stuff all over the place. Well, over in China, where they worship their ancestors and everything is based on last names and tradition. They don't want to change. They're not going to give up 1,000 years of traditions just because you've got guns. So because they wouldn't change and adapt, they want to hold on to old traditional stuff. These guys swoop in under the name of social Darwinism. They take over. Japan, same thing. They're going to take over. Places with lots of jungles and not a whole lot of resources. Well, they're going to take over. And Europeans will own the bulk of the planet. Now, remember, in 1820, the United States declared this side of the world is closed. And if anyone comes over trying to colonize the Western Hemisphere, North America, Central America, South America, the United States will instantly declare war on you and run your butt out, right? But everywhere else in the world is open for European imperialism. Okay, so that's where we left off, right? Everybody remember that? Last test you took a week before Christmas was at imperialism. Yes. Okay. Now let's introduce something else there. What about the people who were not on top under social Darwinism? What about the people that social Darwinists would say are the losers? The ones working in the factories, the ones still on the farms, the poor. What do we do with them? Well, they're not just going to drop out and quit like, hey, you know what? I suck. I think I'll take my family and jump in the ocean. They're not going to do that. They're going to fight back, right? So the counter movement to that for the lower classes economically is what we're going to call communism. Social Darwinism is promoted by the upper classes who see themselves as winning. Communism is for the losers, to borrow the words of our current president, losers. The person looks like a loser. Communism teaches that there should be no private property whatsoever. You should be free to do whatever you want. There should be no boundaries. There should be no borders. There should be no money. If you need something, go get it. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Anybody watch, what do we call that? It's the Walking Dead spinoff series based out of LA, Fear the Walking Dead. And they're establishing communism at the end. They have those boxes everywhere. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Well, it comes from the Communist Manifesto, right? According to the communist, where does wealth come from? The people on the bottom doing the labor. How do these guys get rich? How do they own their factories? The poor people on the bottom giving their labor, using their lives, using their muscles. The little guy in the factory making minimum wage is producing a product, right? And he takes the product to his boss, and his boss pays him for it. And then his boss takes that product outside, jacks up the price, and sells it for a great profit, or a profit either way. And so what communism would say is, well, the product that you made, that you gave to your boss, was obviously worth more than what he paid you for it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sell it for a profit. So what they were saying is, just cut out the middleman. You make the product, you sell it, you get the money directly. Okay? Or even better, you just trade it for another product. Let's just get rid of cash and value, and everybody go make what you need. And if whatever you're good at, go do it, make a little extra, leave it on the table, and if somebody needs it, they come by and grab it. And you go to the next table, you see something, you grab it, kind of like samples in a store, and everybody's laying out there with their tray of samples, and you just go and take what you need. And when you're happy, you leave the rest and you go play, go fly a kite, go fishing, go sleep, go study, go read, go something. And under communism, the theory is that the end goal of communism is kind of like heaven on earth. No crime, because according to the Communist Manifesto, the book that brought us all of this stuff and laid it out for the people of the world, according to the Communist Manifesto, crime comes from jealousy. Crime comes from envy. Crime comes because you have something I want. Well, what if we all had the same things? It also teaches that we have too much stuff. Too much stuff makes for greed. If we could just teach people to be minimalist, you got a room to sleep in, you got a bed with some straws and feathers. What else do you want? You can sleep in my head. You can sleep, you can eat, you ain't starving, you're good. Why do you need all that fancy stuff? That just makes you greedy, it makes you want more, and to give you more, we're gonna have to exploit some labor. So we need to teach you to go without, right? Why do you need a color TV? It's the same videos as black and white. Just use your imagination, and then we can get all this stuff back and stop exploiting the workers and stop stripping the land of its resources. Why do you need a new car? Your car's still running, or it could be running if you fix it up. You ought to be getting 40 years out of that car. This is communism, right? That's the hidden goal. And so this movement will break out early 1800s. Around 1848, we got a guy named Karl Marx. He's born in Germany, and he will join a group called the Communist Party who were talking about this new way of thinking, where the losers from social Darwinism get together, and how do we protect ourselves? How do we get a piece of that money that everybody else is getting? How do we keep from being abused by the upper class? And Karl Marx will team up with an English guy named Frederick Engels, who will do a lot of the translating and stuff. And Karl Marx is a very brilliant guy, and he talks in huge words, and one of these I'm smarter than you kind of guys. And Frederick Engels would translate and dumb it down and make it more, forgive my words, palatable for the people, make it easier to understand, easier to digest for the people. And together, they will write a book called the Communist Manifesto. And now here's where I want to get off on the side a little bit. The year was 2001. My wife and I are in London, and we're touring the place, and we get kind of lost down by Piccadilly Circus and all that kind of stuff. I know you've heard of that, right? You guys watch movies. And we're hungry. And so we're passing this place. It's called the Red Lion Inn. Big red lion on the sign, hundreds of year old buildings, which is England. It's really cool like that. And so we're like, you know what, let's go in and we'll get some, I don't know, fish and chips. That's what everybody likes in England, right? It's a piece of cod that's really quite bland, and chips are French fries. And they'll serve peas with them, little English peas, little green banquet bullet things. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. And so we go up to the second floor of this little pub, basically, because the first floor, the ceiling was about this high and I couldn't walk in it. So we went to the second floor. And we sit down at the table, and this big round table, and this super old building. We start looking at it. On the sign behind me, it said, Karl Marx sat here to work with Frederick Engels in writing the Communist Manifesto in 1847. And the sign next to it was, Frederick Engels sat here to work with Karl Marx to write the Communist Manifesto. And I put my butt in the same chair that Karl Marx put his in. I didn't wash it for a week. No, I'm kidding. That was way off the line. I don't really care because I'm not communist. And yeah, just thought it was fun trivia that I've actually sat in the same chair as this guy in the pub where he wrote the book. Going back to the Communist Manifesto. 1848, this book is published, and it presents communism to the world as a cure-all, as the natural progression of humanity. Capitalism was good, according to the Communist Manifesto. Capitalism was good. It taught us that we can do this. It made us so efficient that we don't need everybody to work. Look at all the massive groups of unemployed people. You know why they're unemployed? Because we don't need them. We got everything we need. We can give everybody in the world one of everything. And half the world wouldn't have to work because we're so dang advanced and we're so darn good thanks to the Industrial Revolution. So if we can convince ourselves that we have enough and pull back on the reins, we can set a lot of people free to just go and enjoy their life. And so that's where communism comes in. Now I'm going to throw in some of my commentary here. If you'll listen to that, communism says we've got enough. So if you look where communist countries are, they're always way behind technologically because they go, we've got enough. We don't have to adapt. Okay? You'll find them very poor. You'll find the people are usually smaller because of a lower food supply. You'll find the technology's not as good. You'll find the quality's not as good because they quit innovating. They said, we've got enough. We're happy with what we've got. We don't need to do anymore. Whereas these guys are always pushing for higher, better quality, cheaper stuff, more production, better production, more technology. So these guys are exact opposites. You with me? So starting in the mid-1800s, communism begins to spread among the lower classes, among the laboring class, among the workforce, and it spreads real rapidly through the center of Europe, starting in Germany, moving towards Russia, moving towards Austria, all those places where the world is crumbling and it's getting behind. England doesn't catch on so much in England because they're leading the Industrial Revolution. They're leading social Darwinism. They don't want that crap there because they're number one. Over here in America, on the East Coast, where there's lots of money, they don't want communism. In the hearts of the big cities where there's massive unemployment and massive poverty, yeah, they want communism. What you find is communism is attractive to the lower class, economic classes, whereas this is attractive to the upper economic classes. And these guys are diametrically opposed to one another. All right, 1 minute or less, let me finish this up. You guys have two videos to watch. One is Karl Marx and his political philosophies. We're going to explain communism to you. And the second video is how do you get from capitalism to communism? The gap in between capitalism, everything is privately owned, and social Darwinistic, and communism, no private property, no money, just get what you want, do what you want, everybody's free. The gap in between these two is called socialism. Socialism is where the government begins to slowly take control and pull the resources from those who have and give to those who don't. You'll see socialism all up in our government, like income taxes. The more money you make, the more taxes you pay. Is that fair? Well, not to these guys, but it's great for these guys. So you'll take the rich, the top 1% of people in America pay over 50% of all of the taxes. The top 1% in America pay more than 50% of all the taxes. The top 1% is paying for your public schools. They're paying for your colleges if you get those scholarships. They're the ones that's paying to pave the roads and build libraries. It's coming out of their money. Okay? It's not coming out of their money. They don't have any. And so you have stuff like public schools. Not everybody can afford to send their kid to school. So we'll take from the property owners. Public schools are paid for by property taxes. If you own property, the better your property, the more taxes you're going to pay. That'll go into the school system to provide for people who could not normally do it on their own. right? The wealthy don't need this. They'll just send their kid to a private school or hire a tutor. It's the lower economic classes that need the help. Public libraries, the police, fire departments, charity hospitals, stimulus checks from the government, unemployment, welfare, all of that stuff is socialism. That was brought to you by the communists trying to help spread out and lower the impact of the Industrial Revolution, fighting against social Darwinism. Social Darwinism says let some people weed themselves out. Communism says no, spread everything out equally, right? And communism says the problem with us is we have too much stuff. If we had less stuff, there would be no crime. If everybody was equal, I wouldn't have to steal your stuff. I steal stuff because you have something I want, right? I don't steal what I already have. Well, most people don't. And so under the theories of communism, if we can make everybody with the same amount of property and nobody really owns it anyway, if somebody takes it, they weren't really stealing. It was, that was community property. That's all y'all's dog. That's not just my dog. Hey, yeah, you can take my TV because it was, our TV. And yeah, communism. So I'm going to cut this off here. You guys pull up the documents. It's on Schoology, week 17, I believe. And on the Google Docs, there's a link at the top. Click that link. It'll take you to the video, answer the questions. I'll be here all day if you need me. Shoot me an email. I'll probably even have my Webex up all day. And remember, do not come to campus this week. We are all virtual until January 8th, Friday the 8th. After that, we'll find out if we're coming back or if we're remaining virtual. All right? Good luck, you guys. I hope 2021 is off to a great start for you. Call me if you need anything.